So if you all just accept that you're happy for it to be recorded. And we'll get started. So welcome everybody to the second of the Scale Applied Creativity Lab training sessions. I'd like to just start to ask if anybody has any questions or reflections or thoughts after the last training session. Or are you feeling comfortable? Okay, looking forward to seeing what comes next. Hi, Claudia.
Hello, morning.
So that's no questions then. Okay, so last time I have a correction for you. Do you remember when I was describing the game in the divergent thinking game section right at the beginning of this first day? There was a game called the human knot, where I say young people hold hands opposite each other in the circle. They don't have to end up in a straight line. They just have to end up in a circle. So that's a correction. I've corrected the training, the workbook, the ACL workbook. So I'll put the corrected version back into our Google Drive so that partners can share it with you. So you've got the corrected version. Yeah, and apologies because I haven't done that game. I've only seen it happen once and I haven't done it for a while. So it's not fresh in my mind. So last session, we looked at creativity. Hi, Pedro. And why it's important and why we need to teach about it. And I explained that the Applied Creativity Lab was an initial day or 4 hours, and then subsequent 1 hour a week sessions, but you can do them condensed. You could do it in 2 days. You know, you could, there's no reason why you have to do it week after week after week. That's just how I do it. And we started to work through the divergent thinking games that I started to explain last time. And I've got a few more to explain before we go further. So I'll just share the workbook. I explained, the last one I explained was the inward outward circle, where you want them all to stand in a circle, holding hands facing inwards. And they have to try and find out how to become an outward facing circle without letting go. So we talked about that one. So this next one is called holiday. And here you will need to have the young people in their groups of 5 or 6, and you need a long beach towel, just a cheap beach towel, and a small hand towel, and you need one of these each per group. So if you have, who's asking me questions? Okay, Ernesto and Anna coming, great. So a long beach towel and a smaller hand towel per group, and you want to have them lined up. So you need to be doing this again in an open space, like a classroom with no tables or a small hall area. And you're going to ask them, it's like a team race. And the challenge is to get from one side, or from the start line, if you create a start line with some tape on the floor or an imaginary start line, and you want them to get to the other end of the room only by standing on the towels that they have. So they've got one long beach towel, one small hand towel, and they have to stand on the towels at all times. If anybody steps off the towel onto the floor, then that group has to go back to the start line and start again. They can use any strategy or any technique that they can think of, and you want to ask them to think creatively, but it is a race. So it's quite entertaining again. And again, if you know your group, that's really helpful because you'll know, yes, old cardboard pieces. That's a very good suggestion, Sandra. But either way, it can be slippery. So you have to be careful again. But again, that's holiday. So any questions about holiday? Okay, so once you've finished that game, again, you ask the winning team particularly what skills and behaviours they used, and you can reflect back to them what you observed them do as well, because sometimes, obviously, you will see things that they don't realise they've done. And then you add any more behaviours to your chart, your list of behaviours that you've been keeping after every game. So activity number 8 is called Penguins. And this one is quite chaotic, but they really enjoy it. So here you need to put the chairs, all of their chairs, in a different place in the room. So randomly space out the chairs. And then you select one young person to be the penguin, and you explain to them, and you get them to come and stand with you. Everybody else sits on their chair at random in the room. The one person who is going to be the penguin, you explain to them that they can only walk with their knees stuck together and their hands outside. I mean, just for fun, you can make them actually walk like a penguin. So i.e., for example, they cannot run. All right, this is to stop them running. But the objective is for them to get to sit on the empty chair. For everybody else in the group, their aim is to make sure there isn't an empty chair near the penguin. So they have to move from their chair to the empty chair if the penguin is near it. But they soon need to work out and their strategy, and you have to play this again and again and again and get them to stop and think about what the strategy might be. Because if an empty chair is next to me and the penguin is about to sit on it, oh, hold on, somebody's gone to, they've gone to Teams again. Let me just see who it is. Sorry. Let's just see who's here. Stuart. Right, let me just tell him to jump ship again. Hi, Stuart. Sorry, everybody. Won't be a minute. I just need...
Sorry about that.
Yeah, Stuart, we're on Zoom again. So let me just send you the Zoom link. Hold on.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Don't worry. I need to find it myself. Hold on. Okay, here it is. Stuart. Nope, not Stuart. Stop Wilson. There is. Okay, right. So let's get that off. Stuart, yeah, you jump ship. Go to Zoom.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Right. So sorry, everybody. Stuart and Maddie will join us shortly. Okay, so if I was sitting on one chair and the empty chair was next to me, if I suddenly got up and moved to the empty chair, then all of a sudden I'm leaving another empty chair and the penguin can just turn around and sit on that. So the group will soon realise that they need to talk to each other, and they can talk to each other in this game to try and work out the strategy. And actually what needs to happen is that the person furthest away from the empty chair needs to move and go and sit on the on the empty chair. So the penguins then got to then turn around and walk back. Okay, it's very hard to explain, and doing this is making me realize that I need videos of these games so you can see them in action, but that would just take longer. So does that make sense to everybody? Yeah, good.
Yes.
Right, can see some nods. Thank you. So again, once they've
May I just
mastered,
ask? I'm
yes.
sorry. How many more chairs do you, for example, 10 kids, how many chairs do you put it?
There's enough chairs for everybody. So if
Plus
there's 15 children, there's 15 chairs, and one person stands up and is the penguin, leaving
But
an empty chair. So if you take that person to the opposite end of the space, the furthest away from the empty chair to start with.
So there's only one empty chair?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you take them up off the empty chair, move them to the other end of the room to start, and then as they start walking towards the empty chair, the others will start moving their chairs. So the empty chair then is in a different place. Oh, bless you.
Sarah, in terms of these exercises, is it best to start off with these group exercises, then move on to the sort of brain teasers that we did last week, or is there a right or wrong way to do it?
The brain teasers that we looked at last week, that's when they just walk into the session at the beginning. All right, and we'll look at other PowerPoints in a minute when we get to that point. There'll be lots of other things that I've got on PowerPoints that you can use. So every session you'll have a PowerPoint. You don't have to, it's just the way I do it, but you can have the PowerPoint up on your whiteboard or your computer or whatever, and you've always got some other options of activities to look at on screen as well. Okay, but these physical games, Michael, these are getting them to think divergently. All right, so they're specifically about training them to think divergently. Hi, Anna Maria. We are, so people that are just arriving, have just arrived, we are continuing to go through the divergent thinking games. So we have just done holiday and penguins, and because we're recording this, you'll be able to watch this back and catch up what you've missed at the beginning. Okay, so the next activity number 9, is called Silent Circle. This one's really, really easy to explain. And for this one, you will need a tambourine and a blindfold. So everybody stands in a circle. One person is in the middle wearing the blindfold. You give the tambourine to somebody in the circle. You spin the person in the middle just so they are slightly disorientated. And then you ask the children to pass the tambourine around the circle without making a sound. As soon as the person in the middle hears the tambourine and points in the right direction, then they swap. So the person that made the noise goes into the middle, and the object of this game is to get the tambourine around the entire circle without making a noise. And this one really helps to calm them down. So it's a good one to do after penguins. Penguins, they are high, excited, having fun, and then Silent Circle brings the energy back down again. And it rehearses listening skills. It helps collaboration. So they really have to work as a team. Non-verbal communication as well. And again, so after you've finished, you can play that 5-6 times. They like to have an opportunity to be in the middle, but you won't have time to have everybody in the middle necessarily. But again, reflect on the skills that they've used in terms of listening and working together as a team at the end. And then there's one more, and you don't have to do all of these games. It's like a resource box for you. You can choose which games you want to do, and depending on how much time you have. Okay, there are more than enough games for the amount of time generally for this first session. So you can try some, see how they go. The last one that you might do is called Pass the Picture. And here you need them sat in a small group, and you give each person a piece of plain paper. They each have a different coloured pen, and then give them each a random small object. So you'd need a collection of small objects. So you might have a feather or a piece of string or a clothes peg or a ruler or a video case. I don't know. I'm just looking around my room. Some random small things, and you give them one small thing each, one coloured pen and one piece of paper. Ask them to draw their object on the piece of paper for 1 minute. After the minute is up, they pass the paper to the left person, and they pass their pen to the right person. So they all end up with a piece of paper with somebody else's drawing and a different coloured pen. And so then the object, what did they pass the object? They must have to pass the object, or do they pass? I don't know. Let's think. Yes, no, they keep the object. They keep the object. So now they draw.
The text says it's the object they pass along.
It's the object they pass along. Sorry, objects to the right. Okay, good. Yeah, that's right. I'm getting it mixed up. So now they've got a different object, but they've got a piece of paper with somebody else's drawing of a different object. So the object of the exercise here, just turning my phone off, is for them to make connections between different objects, because you're wanting them to create a picture with connections between the different objects, if that makes sense. It's random, and it's not necessarily ordered in any way. It's down for them to think creatively and to just draw and connect up the two things that they've got in a picture as best they can. And then they pass the paper again to the left, the object to the right. They do the same again and again and again, and they all will end up with completely different pictures and different interpretations of the connections between the objects. And then it's nice to hold them up and have a look and see what different connections people made between the different things, and what pictures they created. And there's no right and there's no wrong. These pictures just are as they are. And that's the beauty of demonstrating the possibilities and the imagination, and it kind of is there in front of you. So that's the last of the activities in the divergent thinking section. Now I'm going to stop sharing the workbook, and I'm going to share the PowerPoint for the first session, because if you recall last time we looked at this PowerPoint. Let me just get it so that it's up full. We started looking at these at the beginning of the session as they were coming in, and then there was the video. Did I share the video last time? Yeah.
Whenever we are faced,
yeah, we saw that, right? And so then, if these videos, if you remember, were created to be able to deliver these applied creativity labs on Zoom. But since we've been doing them in person again, I'm finding them really useful to have up on the whiteboard, on the screen in the classroom, because then you've always got something to go back to, or to just stop and calm down and look at as a more sedentary, a sitting down activity if needs be. So I'm just going to take you through this laptop that you could have up on this first morning session, and additional things that you can refer to if you want to. So this divergent thinking slide, this just explains the start of that video. So when you face a problem or challenge, you need to find and decide upon a solution. Problems can be small, like broken pencils or bicycle wheels, or big and more serious, like air pollution, food waste, flooding, or war. When you practice this way of thinking outside the box, spending time allowing your mind to think freely, you'll be able to come up with all sorts of possible solutions and things that you might do. Some might be totally wild ideas, some more practical, and this is divergent thinking. So this is where we start to ask them to practice each session by starting with one object and saying, how many different uses can you think of for a sock? In this case, each week the object changes. So we don't have time to do this, sadly, because otherwise it is fun to do it. But if I asked you now on your own to write down as many different uses can you think of that you can think of for a sock, you might come up with 3, 4, 5, maybe 6. All right. By the time we get to week 8 or the 8th session, and you've been doing this each week, you will be coming up with 20, 25. Some children come up with 30 in 1 minute. So it's kind of starting to practice the divergent thinking. I always put this in just because it's so cute. Sometimes children come up with it being a sock could be a sleeping bag for an animal. Anyway, so on this PowerPoint are some of the games that we have talked about and that we talked about last week. So the 1 to 10 game, where you wanted them to count from 1 to 10, that was on there. Random question, just a random slide. What would you be sure to find in the middle of Toronto? I ask you this question now. Any ideas? Sorry?
Cars.
Yeah.
Cars.
Yes, but no.
Yeah.
Yes, but no.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who said that? Stuart.
me.
Really? Yeah. The letter O is in the middle of the word Toronto. So random. Then here's another one that you can do. How many words can you make using at least 3 of these letters? Give them 1 minute and 30 seconds. And I appreciate that this is in English and we have to discuss how you might do it in a different language that uses different font, maybe if needed. But the idea there is to see how many words they can come up with. And often most of the time, they just come up with words that they know. But we didn't say that at the top. So they were perfectly entitled to make up their own words. So when my colleague teaches this, he says, I had moshti, and moshti is the cauliflower alarm clock that sits next to my head by my bed that wakes me up every morning and does a little dance. And the kids just think that's crazy. But that's thinking outside the box. The next slide. Each image represents a letter, and the letters make up a word, and the word is an animal. So you ask them to try and work out what the animal is. So I'll just give you a minute to think. Shout when you know. And this is in English as well, so it's even harder for everybody. Sorry.
I know it, but I have done it before.
Okay. Shall we ask Stuart to tell us? People are still trying. I think we should say what it is, Stuart, because I think it's harder to do it in a different language. Yeah.
So we've got cutlery, aeroplane, mushroom, explosion, luggage, camel.
Okay. Hope that makes sense to everybody. Yes. And you can make your own up. I made up another one. I think it comes next, actually, or maybe not. Oh, this is another divergent thinking exercise. How many different uses can you think of for a tin of soup? So they should come up with more than what they did before. Here's one I made up. This is, oh, and I need to change this slide every time I see it. Each image is a letter. The letters make up a word. The word is a type of food. And it should say, what food is it? I need to make a note. Have you seen this one before, Stuart?
No, not this one.
Okay.
I think I've got it.
Go on then.
Toast.
Yay! Well done. Do you want to explain?
Yeah, so the first picture is time. The second one is an ostrich. Then you have antlers, sports shoes, and a tarantula.
Brilliant. And of course, any of those there could be different interpretations, because I never know whether it's a clock, C, or is it an emu or an ostrich? Horns, trainers, spider. Do you know? Anyway, it's fun trying to figure it out. What was that last one? Oh yes. Another option there for how many ways can you think of to get fit? Give them 2 minutes and they will all come up with the traditional jogging, climbing, cycling, walking, and others might say climbing trees, hopping up and down on the spot for a day. I don't know. So you want them to start thinking of unusual ways to get fit. Yes, then it says finding out more about a problem. So we found out about litter last time, didn't we? Can spark more ideas, as can finding answers to questions you have about the problem. Why? So what this was about mental health and air pollution. So what is mental health, or why is air pollution a problem, or why is litter a problem in the case of the one that we started to look at? And getting people to write their ideas down and share them with others can make you think of new ideas too. So then it's the skills.
Whenever we are faced with a problem,
and that's the same video again. So if you're doing this in a day, you will have had your overview expert. You'll have done some of these games. You will then have had 3 more experts come in and give their different perspectives on the problem. Did we cover that bit last week? No, blank faces. So the other 3 experts will be people that can offer a slightly different perspective on the problem. So if we were doing litter for real, we might bring in somebody from the council that goes and picks up the litter and talks about how long it takes and what kinds of litter they actually find in your local area. Or we might get somebody from a wildlife organisation to talk about when the litter ends up in the countryside or in the water, in a river, how that affects animals. So just a different perspective again. Or we might get somebody maybe to talk about behaviour change. So if you were wanting, if the young people were thinking they were going to do a campaign to raise awareness of litter and the impact of litter, they want to be able to change people's behaviour and get people to stop dropping litter. So get somebody to come in and talk about behaviour change and what the cycle of behaviour change is. So somebody like a psychologist or something. And these 3 experts you only want them to talk for a maximum of 6 minutes each. So you're just dropping in other professionals. Again, that they can ask them questions about their careers, but not about the subject matter. And it just gives them a different perspective. So your entire morning starts with your overview expert, some games, and then you probably have a break time, recess, and then your 3 experts, extra 3 experts, and then some more games. And depending on your timing, you're just going to have to plan. I always plan more. I'm sure you do too. And then if you run out of time, great. Better to have more up your sleeve and ready than suddenly come to an end and have nothing. So that takes you to lunchtime. Divergent thinking, games and experts. So after lunch, we move into convergent thinking. And what shall I share first? Hold on. Okay, I think I'll go to the workbook because I need to explain this one to start with. So again, there is a PowerPoint, which I'll show you in a minute, for the convergent thinking afternoon session. But this is usually quite short, this session, and you might only use an hour for this because they do get tired. And it's quite hard to keep them concentrating by the end of all of this excitement. So the first activity after lunch is a group activity. And this is the point at which you want them to start working in the groups that they will work in for the rest of the project. So I would suggest your groups need to be diverse in terms of ability, for sure, and gender and ethnicity, etc., as diverse as you can. So you've got equally balanced groups. So this first activity is a good after lunch activity, so it gets them moving. It's called the Egg Challenge, and you will need to gather some resources for this. And right at the beginning of this document, I've listed the resources that they need for this. But for the egg challenge, they will need a rubber egg. So you'll need to source, or a ball. It could be a ball, a small rubber ball. If you can't get rubber eggs from anywhere, I don't know where we get them from, but if you just Google rubber eggs, I'm sure it will come up. Some recycled, it's very important that we do this sustainably, some recycled tin foil, aluminium foil, which can then be recycled afterwards. A roll of it, a roll of recyclable cling film. It does exist. So a roll of cling film, a roll of tin foil. You could, and I have an ambition that I want to do this, but it's going to take some working out. You could use a long roll of material, but it needs to be quite long, probably about 4 meters long. And each group needs this collection of items. They will also need some scissors, 2 pairs of scissors, 3 or 4 clothes pegs, a ball of string, and some masking tape, some sticky tape, masking tape, the kind of tape that you might use if you were doing some painting on a window and you don't want the paint to go on the window and you put tape around it, if that makes sense. Masking tape, yeah. Okay. So when they have all of these items should be in a bag to start with, so they can't see. So at the beginning of this activity, you've got 4 bags, if you've got 4 groups, and you will give them each a bag, and you will say, in the bag are some materials, and you want them to spend 3 minutes at the beginning of this challenge, 3 minutes discussing their strategy. because what you are going to ask them to do, oh, I forgot bubble wrap. You need a piece of bubble wrap as well. You are going to challenge them to get the egg or the ball from one side of the room to the other using a contraption, a system that they build or make with the contents of the bag. So they've got to create a means of transporting the egg from one side of the room to the other. The rules are the egg is not allowed to touch the floor. Nobody is allowed to touch the egg or the contraption they've built once the egg is in motion, once they've started it off. So give them 3 to 5 minutes to plan their strategy to start with, and then just 10 minutes to do it. And then you stand back and watch it happen. And what will happen normally is that they will unroll the tin foil and unroll the cling film, and they'll try and get the egg to run down the tin foil or the cling film, and of course it won't, it falls off. So then they start trying to make things along the sides to make the sides stronger. Very occasionally, somebody in that initial discussion session will think of something different, which might use the string, and they might start talking about we need some height at one end and it to be tied up to something high. You can use whatever's in the room to fix it to. The best one I've ever seen and the quickest was one boy who got hold of the egg, wrapped it in the masking tape, taped it to the tin foil tube, threaded the tin foil tube, well, threaded the string through the tin foil tube, and it just shot down. Like, whew, instant. So that was the best one. And sometimes they use the string, and then they'll put the egg in the bubble wrap, and they'll use the string to make a loop to tie that to the round the long piece of string, and then the egg travels down the string like a cable car. So there's all sorts of ways that they can do it. So you give them time to do this. When one team is ready and they're able to they do it and it works, then you stop everybody and everybody watches, and you discuss, get them to talk about how they came up with that solution and what they did to make it work. If you have time and you want to give everybody the opportunity to succeed, then you can ask the group that did it first to find a different way and let everybody else carry on. For me, it takes a long time for some groups, and failure is all part of this learning, because Dyson did not invent his Hoover in one go. It took Dyson something like 40,000 iterations to come up with his winning Hoover mechanism. So it's really important for them to appreciate the concept of failure with this. Let me just check the time. Okay. So does that make sense to everybody? Yes, good.
I have some questions again.
Go on then.
First of all, how many attempts you give them again for them to make the process better? And is there some groups, I bet, that can never get it right?
Yeah. Yes. So there are some groups that won't get it, and it depends on how it's going. You have to use your teacher judgment as to whether or not you think you could go for another 5 minutes and give them all a little bit more time. Sometimes it works, sometimes they all manage it. So it's really down to you. It's up to you. You know, if they don't manage it, then you need to talk about what it feels like to not manage it.
Yeah,
and the importance of being able to bounce back, to be resilient, and to want to try again. Maybe not now because we don't have time, but maybe they could try it you know, later on that day, or on a after school or something. I don't know. No, you have to really get them to just talk about what it feels like to not have managed it.
All right. And
yeah.
who creates the groups? Themselves?
You do. Yeah, you do. Well, whoever knows the young people well. So if you're not the teacher, then the teacher needs to create the groups, because they've got to work with each other for the next 8 weeks, and they're going to be developing their new idea for reducing litter. So they've got to work together for 8 weeks as a team. And sometimes, you know, there will be people in the groups that don't get on, and you have to explain to them that that's life. And when you go to work, you meet people and have to work with people that you might not get on with. They might not be your obvious friends, but you have to find a way to work with people to get a job done in a team. And this is all part of the learning. So does that make sense? Yeah, good. Okay, so that was, let's go back to the handbook. That was the egg challenge. Okay, right, now we have some drama-based short activities. So this first one, activity number 10, is called Tableau Freeze Frame. I'll show you the PowerPoint online activities to do instead of these, or as well as these if you want to. I do both generally now in this session. So here in their groups, so they're always in their same groups from now on, you ask them to create a freeze frame or tableau of a family, so that you give them 1 minute, very quickly, show me a family. So very quickly, you'll have a parent or 2 parents or some grandparents and some children. Somebody will be a dog or a cat or whatever. And you just say, right, freeze. And you have a look around and you just ask each group quickly to explain who they are in the family. Then you go on and say, right, next, I want you to show me a bowl of fruit. So each group then becomes, somebody's a banana, somebody's the bowl, somebody turns into an apple or a pineapple. Just very quickly, they have to decide which piece of fruit they're going to be in this bowl of fruit. They do think it's funny. I am always surprised that they're willing to do this, because I find it really embarrassing, but, you know, depends on your groups. And then you might get them to show you a house. Very quick, show me a house. So people will be the roof, some people will be windows, etc. Then ask them to show you as a group what anger looks like. Anger. Now, this is quite difficult, and what you will get to start with is lots of people being angry. So they'll all be like making faces and doing fists, and you'll have 5 people being angry. What you want them to do is, as a group, show you the shape of anger. So they need to talk about what anger feels like. What does this emotion feel like? And then how could they represent it as a group? And often we talk about anger starts in the gut and it bubbles up and then it explodes out of the mouth or out of the arms, or, you know, it's an explosion of, or an eruption. So they often then start to make volcano shapes. So as a group, they'd make the shape of a volcano, perhaps, and somebody in the middle might be being the anger spurting out at the top or exploding, or there might be an explosion, so they've all got their arms out. Then these words are quite hard. You might want to change the next one. Instead of courage, you might have happiness. You could have courage, you know, or strength. Show me strength. Show me learning. You know, these are really hard, and the purpose of these is to get them from thinking literally, like show me a family, show me a bowl of fruit, show me a house, to thinking metaphorically. So they have to interpret as a group what that emotion feels like, and it's a different way of thinking. And it pushes them to look at values and emotions, and gets them to think about the essence of the value or the emotion and how they might show that in a physical way. So once you've done that, again, you can stop and just have a quick, what skills did you use? You know, it's very quick. The first game is very quick. You know what you're doing. It's just easy. But then when you have to think about how we show anger, then they start to have to talk to each other, listen to each other, agree collaboratively how they're going to physically represent something. So lots to be got from that one. Okay, activity 11 is also called metaphor. And I'll come to the PowerPoint in a minute and give you the online versions that you could do as well as these. Metaphor, again, in their same groups, you're going to ask them if, in this case, if litter was an animal, what animal would it be? And what would it look like? And can they make the shape? Can they make that animal? And can that animal move? And what sound does it make? So all of a sudden, you know, they have to have a quick discussion about what animal could represent litter. And they, you know, they'll often choose a goat, for example, because a goat eats litter. But then they've got to actually work out how to look like a goat as a group. So somebody might be the head with the horns, and we might have 4 legs or something. But they need to be able to describe how and why they have chosen that animal and who's what part of the animal. Then you might ask them, the examples here are food waste or air pollution, but if you said if litter was a machine, what would it look like? So again, they've got to think about litter as a machine and how horrible it would be, probably. And there might be lots of different parts to this machine. I don't know, it'd be up to them and what they come up with. There are lots more questions there. I would only do these first 2 here. So if where it says if food waste was an animal, I just do if litter was an animal, what animal would it be? What would it look like? And then if air pollution was a machine, what would it look like and sound like? Yeah, there's some other alternatives there that you could use as well if you wanted to, but I tend to not have time. Generally don't have time for that. So you've asked them what they've created and why. You ask them what their key learning is, and then how they could apply anything about litter that they know about litter. Is anything starting to come up in terms of ideas for litter and reducing litter? And again, ask them what skills and behaviours they've used. And then activity 12, which is the last one for this convergent thinking section. And if you remember, convergent thinking is where you've got lots of bits of information and you come up with one solution or one answer. So all of these, like the egg challenge, is you've got all these different bits of material and you've got to work out how to get the egg from one side of the room to the other. Where you're asking them to be a family or a bowl of fruit, you've got different bits and you've got to create one tableau. Again, the metaphor activity does the same thing. And then this last one is a nice, quiet, silent final activity to finish off this section. And it's free writing. So here they need pen and paper. They need to be sat down on their chairs and they need to close their eyes to start with. And you want to ask them to imagine 5 years from now, a time when litter is no longer a problem. And to just think for a moment what that looks like and then tell them to open their eyes and start writing in response to your questions. And you tell them not to stop writing. So free writing is continuous writing. So even if they get stuck, they just put ... or and until another thought comes in, but they have to keep writing. They find it quite difficult, but it's a good exercise for just letting your mind flow. So you wander around in front of them as they're starting to write, and you say, just prompt questions. You might ask them, where are you now? What does it feel like now? How are people behaving now? What can you see? What can you hear? How is life different now? 5 years have passed. What can you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? I always say, if aliens landed from Mars and saw the area that used to be covered in litter, what can they see now? What will they think of the human race now, when there's no litter? What are you doing now? What experiences are you having now? How are things different? What would the aliens say when they left about your planet? What are people's attitudes now? How are they behaving differently? And so as they start to imagine this idyllic world where the problem is solved, you then say, what needs to change now in order to move to this vision? So you're starting to get them to think about where the end game, like there being no litter. So what are the immediate steps you might take to start the journey? So if you take 10 minutes to do that, and then at the end, you don't want to read it, you're not going to see it, it's not being tested or marked or anything, it's just their personal piece of free writing about what life is like now, or in future without litter. And then you can reflect again on the skills that they've used in those last 3 activities, and just to bring the session to a close. I'll just share the PowerPoint that goes with this session, which is PowerPoint number 2, just confusingly, and give you just some additional options on here, because it starts the same way. It's a bit of an explanation of convergent thinking, where you take lots of possible ideas, bits of information, ask questions about them, think about them until you come up with a solution or one answer. And this way of doing it online involves riddles, because riddles are a great way of puzzling, finding solutions to problems. So you could show them these as well, because they're quite quick and nice to do. So the first riddle: a person stands on one side of a river, their dog's on the other. The person calls their dog, who immediately crosses the river without getting wet, without using a bridge or a boat. How did the dog do it? Finetta, you're not allowed to answer. Sandra's not allowed to answer. And Stuart's not allowed to answer, because they all know this. Anybody else? Just, what do you think?
He jumped.
The river's too wide to jump.
I actually hadn't seen this one before.
Go on then, you can have a go.
I'm assuming the river had dried out and there was no water to dry river.
That's one possible solution. That's absolutely correct. That's one possible solution. The river has dried up and it's just trotted across. It's not the answer in this particular riddle, but it's one. You're thinking on the right lines now.
The river is frozen.
Frozen, yeah.
Yay! Well done. The river was frozen solid, and the clue there was the husky. Anyway, right, next one. 2 boxers are in a match scheduled for 12 rounds. It's pure boxing, no kicking, no takedowns or anything else. One of the boxers is knocked out after only 6 rounds, yet no man throws a punch. How is this possible?
Female boxer.
You've seen it before.
I haven't.
Oh, you haven't? Hey, well done, Michael. I like it. We're all getting better at this ourselves. It was 2 women. Okay. And the clue there was no man throws a punch. So there's always an element of a clue somewhere that leads you to the answer. There are 7 sisters in a house in a town where there is no electricity or any electronic gadget. Sister 1 is reading a book. Sister 2 is mending a bike. Sister 3 is playing table tennis. Sister 4 is doing a crossword. Sister 5 is painting. Sister 6 is gardening. What is Sister 7 doing?
Playing table tennis.
Yay, well done. Hooray. Because it takes 2 to play table tennis. Excellent. And there we are, 2 sisters playing table tennis. That was such a good find when I Googled that. Right, last one. A container that has no hinges, no key and no lid, yet golden treasure lies inside. What is it?
A honeybee.
Say that again.
A honeybee.
Honeycomb. Honeycomb.
Yeah,
Honeycomb.
honeycomb.
Yeah, that's nice. That's a good answer. It's not the answer in this case, but you're absolutely thinking on the right lines now. This is how we can see that people are starting to think in different ways.
Banana.
A banana. No hinges, no key. Yeah, potentially.
The egg.
Yay. The egg. The egg. And
Right,
apparently
yeah.
that is a line from a Tolkien The Hobbit story. So I think if people know the story, then they've got a head start with that one. Okay, so when we were talking about the game where you pass the paper and the objects, that was about making connections. And this again is a very quick, easy. This is the primary children's version. So I think it will probably still be fine for secondary, but equally we could make it a bit harder. So what word connects these 3 words? Soap, shoe, and tissue.
Dirt.
Dirt. Yes. Do you know, that's really interesting. Well done, Claudia. I've never heard anybody say that before, but it's a word that you would say at the end of soap, shoe, or tissue, the same word.
Box.
Yay, well done. Soap box, shoe box, tissue box. Next one. What word connects these 3 words? Shelf, read, end.
Book.
Yeah, well done. Bookshelf. You read a book, and bookend. And then the last one. What word connects these 3 words? Bath, tea, and gum.
Bubble.
Bubble. Well done. Someone's mother has 4 children. One is named North, one is named South, and one is named West. What is the name of the 4th child?
Someone.
Yay! Who said that?
Me.
Hey, well done, Stuart. I can only see 4 people on my screen, so I don't know who's saying what. You're in a room with a table pushed against the wall. On it, there's a box of thumbtacks. We call them drawing pins, matches, and a candle. You must attach the lit candle to the wall in a way that the wax won't drip onto the table or the floor. How do you do it? Any suggestions?
You blow out the candle and you stick it.
I blow out the candle. Good. I like it. Now you're starting to think divergently. That's good. It's not the answer, but yeah.
You attach it to the wall so that it drips onto both the table and the wall.
Say that again.
I don't understand how to say you attach it to the wall in a way that it would drip onto both the table and the wall. So therefore, it's not going into one or the other, it's going to both.
That's really good thinking as well. So we're saying, yeah, right. I'll put you out of your misery because we haven't got time. So you use the thumbtacks to, well, it wouldn't work because you couldn't stick drawing pins into a wall. It would never work, would it? But that's the idea anyway. So you stick it to the wall, put the candle in the box. Right, last one. Now this is a nice challenge as well, just to do if you have time in the afternoon, as all of the others are on this PowerPoint. In groups, you could ask them to come up with some really original ways to stop someone biting their nails using all three of these items. So a palm tree, a cocktail drink, and an apple. And each of their solutions for stopping somebody biting their nails has to include all three of these items. There is in the activity guide, or the ACL workbook guide, there at the end of it, there is this activity, and there is an extension to this activity, which is really nice. So if I just stop sharing, let me just see what happens at the end of here. All right, okay. If you have time, it's nice to do this. So you ask them just in pairs to come up with as many different ways to stop biting your nails as you can, using the tree, the drink, and the apple. And then you split them into pairs. So one is A, one is B, one is A, one is B, one is A, one is B. And you give all of the A's, you gather them, tell them to come and stand near you, and just say to them, when you hear B explain their idea for stopping somebody to bite their nails, I want you to be really positive and enthusiastic and praise their idea. Tell them how great it is and how marvelous. All right. You get them to sit down and in a different place so that they're with a different partner. And so then you ask them to explain their idea, and the partner gets really great feedback. You then ask all the B's to come out, and you say to them, right, when they explain, A explains their idea to you, I want you to be really negative, tell them it's rubbish, tell them it'll never work, but there are huge problems with it. Why on earth did they think of that? It's just rubbish, pointless. So just be negative, basically. And then you go back and get them to sit with a different partner, and A tells B their idea, but B rubbishes it. And then afterwards, you stop and you reflect and you say, how did it feel when your idea was rubbished? When people were negative about it, how did that make you feel? And you really want them to understand and to articulate and talk about how they might have felt small, deflated. They really don't want to tell you any more ideas because you think all of their ideas are rubbish. You know, it wasn't nice. And then how did they feel when they were given positive feedback? And how good it made them feel, and how encouraged they were, etc., etc. So you're literally just giving them an exercise there to appreciate the value and the importance of positive feedback and the damage that negative feedback does to people when they're coming up with ideas. Okay, right. I'm going to have to take a break. Otherwise, we will be here all day. Let me just finish this PowerPoint very quickly, just so you know what's on it. as extra thing. So here is just a reminder of the skills to help people think convergently. So you'd ask them what skills helped you think convergently, because you've done your reflection on your egg challenge, you've done your reflection on your metaphors and your tableau exercise, and your free writing. Here's just a reminder for them and to you of the difference between divergent thinking and convergent thinking. And that's just a nice slide that helps you see the difference between the two. And then you've got your final questions. And then there's lots of stuff for the teacher at the end here, but I'm going to stop sharing that now. Right, we're going to take a break. So it's 7 minutes past 10 or 7 minutes past 11, wherever you are, maybe. Can we please come back at 10:15, 15 minutes past? Okay. See you shortly. Hi. Welcome back, everybody.
Thank you.
It's that moment when suddenly your quiet room and laptop makes a noise. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we're still waiting for Chiara, Claudia, Carolina, Pedro. Who's Bio Escola? In real
Actually
life?
here.
Carolina.
Yeah, here. It's Ernesto.
Is it an
I will ask to change the name.
okay. Okay, so we'll get started because we have still got lots to get through. So what I'm going to do now, hopefully in the next hour, maybe 45 minutes, is to take you through the much, much simpler weekly hour-long sessions. And there is a PowerPoint for nearly all of those. And so I'll use the PowerPoint to talk you through what needs to happen for each session. So we'll start with, I think it's PowerPoint, I call them session 3. So session 1 was divergent thinking and experts. Session 2 was convergent thinking, the egg challenge and the free writing and maybe the nail biting and the tableau. And then following week now, you're starting the weekly process of them developing their idea and then working up a presentation to present their idea. So this is the first hour-long session. First, practice back into that mindset. How many different uses can they think of for a cardboard toilet roll tube? Give them 2 minutes. And you do this at the beginning of every session. It just gets them back into that mindset. It's like a muscle memory thing. And again, they do this individually. Just think of as many different uses as possible. And then just ask them, who got more than 5? Who got more than 10? How many did you get? Who got the most? Give us your most unusual, entertaining use for a cardboard toilet roll tube. And then move on. So you remind them about divergent thinking, about that's coming up with lots of different ideas, and about thinking laterally outside the box, as they call it, if you can explain that in a way that makes sense to them. Reminding them that thinking freely without judgment, so thinking about that, the negative and the positive feedback with the nail biting challenge, being able to think freely and say what you think without fear of what people think is absolutely vital for this next activity. So you're going to ask them to do mind mapping. So for this session, you will need big flip chart pieces of paper. So A1 size pieces of paper. or smaller pieces taped together if you don't have a huge one, and felt tip pens or just ordinary pens, but felt tip pens are good for this. And they are going to work in their groups round a table. So you're back in a classroom setting now with the groups round tables. So you might have 4 groups in the room or 3 groups in the room. They've each got a piece of flip chart paper. They've all got pens, and you're going to ask them to come up with as many different ways as they can think of to reduce litter in this example that we're following here. And the rules are they have to be kind. They mustn't judge each other's ideas. When somebody else has an idea, think, what does that make me think of? Because more ideas will come. Remind them absolutely all ideas are okay at this stage, and the absurd, crazy, wild ideas are sometimes the best. They can talk to each other, they can tell each other about their idea, and they can say things like, I wish we could make it so that nobody ever had any waste packaging to throw away, for example. Or this is how my litter picking robot might work. You know, just whatever their idea is. So get them to write their ideas down. So as many ideas as possible, mind map them on the flip chart. So they might start with the word reducing litter in the middle, and then just draw arrows and write their ideas around the outside. They mustn't criticize or pick holes in other people's ideas, and also not to go into lots of detail at this point. So it's enough to write down that reminds them of what that idea is. You know, it might be a sentence or two, but then to go on and think of some more ideas, so not to do lots of detail. And this last one here, the bottom one here, when talking to each other, get them to say yes and, not yes but. Because as soon as they say, yeah, that idea is okay, but I can't see that working, that closes the idea down, and they won't suggest any more. And so you'll have to go around the room while they're doing this, listening to what they're saying, reminding them to be positive, because they will automatically probably be negative, and keep nurturing this possibility mindset, nurturing that anything goes, that this is the week where they can just come up with as many wild ideas as possible. You don't want them to be protective of their ideas, so that it's a collective pool. So all of their ideas are going to be whichever one they pick will be their group idea moving forward. It's not one person's. It's okay to change existing ideas. So just because somebody's already invented a litter picking gadget, it doesn't mean to say they can't create a litter picking gadget with an attachment that keeps your hands clean or something. I don't know, I'm just making it up. So they can extend existing ideas or expand existing ideas as long as they're new. Daydream, this is the one lesson, well, in this country anyway, this is the one lesson where it's absolutely okay for kids to sit back and just stare. And they might just be staring out of the window or just looking up. But that's behaviour that you want to see. Normally in a lesson in England, if somebody was looking like that, you'd be like, pay attention. Pay attention. But actually, we want them to daydream. We want them to look out of the window, to go into the alpha brainwave space where you zone out. You know, when you're driving, if you drive a car, or even if you're cycling or even walking, actually, and you suddenly think, I can't remember how I got from there to here. That's the head space, the brain space that we want them to get into for this exercise, because that's where the ideas come from. So yeah, keep asking what if about the problem. Now, there will be a point probably about halfway through the hour or the session where they might suddenly say, I can't think of any more. I can't think of any more ideas. So this is where you give them a strategy, and you say, you can go on an excursion. Stop thinking about the problem of litter and all the things that you've been pondering at the moment. Look around the room, and you could do it yourself now. Look around your room and find 2 different things that you can see. 2 random objects or things that you can see. And then think to yourself, how could those 2 random objects help me find a new way to reduce litter? So I'm looking around my room and I can see a pencil case and a video case. Pencil case and a video case. How could a pencil case and a video case help to reduce litter? I could make a video. I'm going to make a film about the hazards and the dangers of litter. And one of the things that is litter are pencil shavings. When you sharpen your pencil, where do the shavings go? And I'm going to create a pencil case that has got a compartment in it for the pencil shavings to go, and going to create a system for those to be sent somewhere to be recycled. I don't know. I just made that up. 2 minutes ago, that idea didn't exist. Yeah. And that's also linked to the making connections. So the shoebox, tissue box, whatever the other one was, soapbox, that's the connections thing. So they're making connections. Some kids really like this, and they will latch onto it as an idea or a way of doing things. And it's brilliant, actually. You can do it in any situation. It works in your work situation as well. So if you're trying to solve problems for work, start looking around the room. You remind them as well, towards the end of the session, that new ideas will come to them between now and the next session. They'll come to them when they're walking to school or traveling, when they're showering, when they're just nodding off to sleep, when they're watching TV or eating their tea or something, I don't know. But that those ideas will come, more ideas will come, and that they should bring them back to the next session when they do. If they get stuck as well, keep thinking about different aspects of the situation. So we learnt in the PowerPoint about fly tipping, about the volume of litter. We learnt about how long things take to decompose. So if you start to think about different elements of the problem, then more ideas for solving the problem at different stages of the problem or different stages of the litter journey, that will spark some new ideas, and get them to have high hopes, have good pictures in their head of this litter-free world that they're going to create. Remind them that the wild ideas that seem impossible or unrealistic are okay at this point, because they will potentially lead to something new. And then you want them to write their ideas down on flip chart paper and come up with even more together. So that's that PowerPoint for that session. Sounds easy? It is. It's a nice session. These next 2 sessions are nice sessions. So that's mind mapping. So you then need to keep their flip chart paper for the next session. So the next session, if you're looking at the activity book, it's all in there as well in the workbook. All of these sessions are explained. So then it's PowerPoint 3. No, we've just done PowerPoint 3. It must be PowerPoint 4. What am I talking about? Hold on. Got to find PowerPoint 4 on my screen. There it is. Okay, PowerPoint 4. So this next stage is called idea selection. So once again, they come into the room, and you can have this up on the screen, and you want them to just start with how many different uses can you think of for a piece of string, do the whole thing, count them up, ask for the most interesting, etc., etc. And then there's a video. Let's watch this and see what this says.
The second step in finding a solution to a problem is to work out which one of your many possible ideas is the best or final solution. To do this, you must reread each of your ideas and carefully think about each one in more detail. This is called convergent thinking. Aim to decide which 3 or 4 ideas are the best. These will be the ideas that are innovative, as they look a bit different to what's been tried before, that you think are most likely to work and can be afforded within any budget you might have. Take each of the best ideas and write down 3 good things about each one. Then write down 1 problem or thing that might stop the idea from working or being a success. Use your divergent, free-thinking skills again to come up with as many ways around the problem as possible until you have solved the problem. For example, an idea to solve the problem of air pollution might be a campaign to persuade more people to cycle, but that might not work as some people don't know how to ride bikes. Possible solutions to this problem might be to make everyone have cycling lessons, or to watch a video on how to ride a bike, or to build a great 3-wheeled bike that is easier to ride. Once you have explored your best ideas in this way, you should be able to decide which one you think is the best of all.
Okay. So if you show that at the beginning, then they have a sense of what you're about to ask them to do. So they're back in their groups. They've got their flip chart paper from last week with all of their ideas on. And you are now giving them a new clean piece of flip chart paper. You explain to them that you want them to revisit the ideas that they had last week. So to look at their ideas and talk about them together as a group, and to then choose 2 or 3 of their most original and their most interesting ideas that they are going to just develop a little bit further in this lesson. And that the ideas need to be original, applicable, so doable, not so hard that it's never going to happen in a million years, and affordable. So they, as a group, discuss what's on the paper, try to get them to keep focused on the ideas and not who came up with them. Because again, if somebody's saying, I want to do my idea, I'm thinking sometimes primary children talk like this, but secondary, less likely, I think. Get them to talk to each other about why the ideas they like are interesting and how they could work. Then on their new plain flip chart, you want them to draw 3 columns. So 3 even columns. So divide the flip chart into 3 sections. And each section is going to be for one of these ideas that they want to work on a bit further. So in the first section, for the first idea, they write a simple description at the top. So a title for the idea or the name of the idea. Then underneath that, they write 3 good things about the idea. So 3 good things that they like, that they think are, might be why they picked it, how effective it is at reducing litter, etc. And then get them to think of a problem. So this is where it's okay for them to do the yes, but. So what could stop that idea from working? And then get them to do divergent thinking to find ways to solve that problem. So a simple description of the idea, 3 good things about it, 1 or 2 problems, and then some ways to solve the problem. And that's based on something called synectics, which I think we reference in IO1. And you can certainly have a look at that Google that, and we'll refer to it in the MOOC, the online MOOC. We talk about synectics quite a lot, but it's a particularly structured way of looking at ideas in order to try and establish which one you're most comfortable with. So having spent the whole lesson with 3 ideas and doing this work for each one after the initial discussion, this takes about an hour, they should then feel really comfortable making a final decision about which idea they are going to pick. And this idea will be their group's idea from now on that they're going to develop. All right, so that's that session. And then at the end, again, you can remind them of the skills that they've used in their group doing this work. They've persevered, they've used communication skills, they've been thinking, taking turns to speak, they've had to be patient, use teamwork, etc., etc. So we'll stop sharing that one. And then we move on to session 5. I'm guessing. Yes, session 5. Session 5, where is session 5? There's session 5. Okay, so the following week, let's get this up big. Reminding them of the skills again. Start off with your divergent thinking activity. How many uses can you think of for a cardboard box? And then you introduce how you want them to develop their idea. And you may or may not be wanting to use the same timing as we use. And I've put that up on here just because it really helps them focus. Like you have 2.5 weeks, in effect, 2.5 hours to develop your idea. And if you can, I would recommend getting them to start to do this using PowerPoint. They don't have to use PowerPoint. You might want them to present ultimately showing leaflets, holding posters, handing things out to the industry panel when they share their final idea. Or you might want them to be able to use a PowerPoint and see their work on screen. Either way, however they do it, they need to start to work as a group to develop the following. So they need to come up with a name for their idea, and it should be a novel, creative title. Sometimes they'll go for some kind of an acronym of their name. So they might, well, their initials might be V, C, E, and M or something. So, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything. But if they've got an explanation for it, that's fine. But I always talk about things like Spotify, Uber, YouTube. I think things that they might know. TikTok. I mean, what's TikTok got to do with what TikTok does, if you know what I mean? So they need to be able to understand or come up with a creative title and justify that. Deliveroo. I don't know if we have Deliveroo. Do you have Deliveroo? Maybe not. Let's think.
I don't know.
Do you have TikTok?
Yeah, TikTok.
Yeah,
yes.
TikTok. Say yes to TikTok. So that's a good example then. So TikTok. I mean, maybe there's a reference to time, but everybody now knows what TikTok is. Well, not everybody, but people of a certain generation will know what TikTok is. So give them some examples of names of brands or names of things that are unusual or that don't have any obvious connection. Okay, so the bulk of this bit now is getting them to describe their idea. So they really need to start thinking through what this idea is, how it's going to work, what it's going to look like, what it will involve. And they need to be able to describe it, and they all need to understand it. And this is really challenging because they've just got to talk to each other and they've got to work it through and all listen and be on board and understand what it is that their idea is going to achieve. You also want them to think, depending on what it is, and we won't know, you won't know until it happens what their ideas are going to be. So if it's a practical, physical thing, you might want them to describe how it's going to be made. So if it's an object or a gadget, and how might it be made? So they're going to need to do a little bit of research to find out what materials they might need, if it's a thing. And then to describe how it will work. And they need to be able to demonstrate how it will work so that anybody looking at this idea can see pretty quickly what it is, how it's going to work. And that might need some written description, it might need some drawings, or it might need some designs. And when they're presenting their ideas a bit later on, the people that are assessing their ideas, they're going to want to know how this idea is going to be used and who. So who is the target audience or the target market for this idea? Is it for the people under 30? Didn't we say more people drop litter that were under 30? So are they going to target this idea at the under 30s? Is it going to be a campaign? I don't know, whatever it is. So they need to be clear about how it will be used and who will use it, and like where they will find out about it. There's all sorts of other questions you can ask them to consider. And then the last one there is how much it might cost to produce, because sometimes when you get to the final stage of this project and they're presenting formally their ideas to an industry panel, and you've got an entrepreneur on your industry panel who's thinking money and could this make money, just to have had some consideration and thought about how much it might cost. And this is it's not an easy thing to work out, but they have to start somewhere, starting to think about the cost of production, the cost of materials, etc., etc. There's lots more on this PowerPoint slide, which sometimes I don't use, but this is an opportunity at this point to remind them that they need to make a plan for how they're going to work together from now on in this group to get this work done. Because if they are going to use PowerPoint, usually only one person has got the laptop or the notebook. So what are the other people going to do? Could they, and they need to decide this. And again, it's like, this is you as the teacher owning the process, but the young people are owning their learning, right? They're directing their learning. So are they going to have one person does each of those 6 stages or sessions like we've just talked about? So one person thinks about the name, one person works on the description, one person thinks about how it's going to be made, how it's going to work, etc. Or are they going to have a discussion as a group about all of those things, so they all know about all of that, which I would suggest is a good thing if they haven't thought of that. And then they allocate the responsibility for who's going to produce which slide or which piece of that part of that presentation kind of thing. Bad English. And often they need to work backwards from the end point. So if you get them to imagine that they are able to tell you the name, the description, how it's going to be made, how it's going to work, how it's going to be used, who's going to use it, and how much it's going to cost, what do they have to do to get to that point? So if you get them to think backwards from the end point, it'll help them to identify the steps they need to take to create this content on the way. And the aim is to have created by the end of the next session. So you've got this session and the next session, so 2 hours, to create one sheet of A4 paper with this idea on it, so that they can show family, friends, other teachers the idea and get their feedback. So they want to give them a piece of paper that has the name, the description, some indication of what it looks like, how it might work, and how it's going to be used, how it's going to help reduce litter, basically. And then at the end of the next session, because they have 2 sessions to do this idea development stage, at the end of the next session, they can take a photocopy. You'll need to photocopy the one piece of paper so that they can all take it away. They've got one piece of paper to take away and show family and friends and get the feedback. So again, back to the beginning of this session. So you're wanting them to spend a little bit of time thinking about what needs to be done, who needs to do what and by when. Do they need to design this thing first? Who is best at doing what in their team? That's really important, to get them to do a very quick skills audit of the people in the group. Who's good at writing? Who's good at researching? Who likes doing the maths, can do the costing? Who's good at drawing, etc. And then allocate the jobs. Tell them to just do it. They can still make small changes if they think they're needed. Nothing is set in stone yet. Oh, and then there's a video. Let's see what this one is.
Once you have decided on your best idea, the next step is to draw or make a model or prototype, a first version of your idea.
Have we done this one?
This should include what it looks like, what it is made of, how it will work, who will use it, how much it might cost, and the really good things about it. Share your prototype with others and ask them what they think. Ask what they think it is, what they like about it, what they think it does, what you could do to improve it, whether they would buy it, use it, watch it, or listen to it. Why not? Do they like it? Listen to their comments again and keep changing it, refining it, editing it, and improving it until they love it. This is called iterating. Keep doing this until people you share it with finally understand it, think it will work, and love it. When you have reached this stage, you have created your minimum lovable product, MLP. The final step is to prepare a really great presentation, to sell your idea to people who could help you make it happen. Finding great, creative solutions to problems like this helps you learn how to keep going, not to give up, and keep trying when things get difficult. How to listen and learn from and with others, increasing your confidence in your own ability to solve any problem you might face in the future.
Okay, so that's just a reminder video to show before they start work on this next stage, so that they understand, hopefully, what they've got to do. Then I will leave this last slide up on the screen for this session and the next session. So they've got a reminder of all the things that they've got to do by the end of the next session. So the name, the description, how it's going to be made, how it's going to work, how it will be used, how much it might cost. And then once they've got all that information to somebody to get as much of that onto an A4 piece of paper to share with family and friends for the following week. And there's a reminder of the skills, and then that's finished. So that's session 5. Session 6, where's session 6? Is just literally a reminder. So at the start of the next session, you just remind them, do another quick divergent thinking activity for the scarf, just to get back into the project, remind them of their skills. That's the video that you've just shown them, the end of the last session. You don't need to repeat it. Just a reminder of the things that they're working out. Just get them to double check, because we've now only got 1 hour left, and at the end of this hour we need an A4 piece of paper with this idea on. Are we doing the right things? Have we got our steps in the right order? You know, can we do it better? Are we doing it well? Could we do it even better? Can we make it simpler? You know, just keep refining, keep asking those clarification questions, and then leave that up again to remind them of what they've got to do by the end of that session. Okay, nearly there. So that was session 6. That was 6A. Was it 6A? Was it 6A? Let me just have a look. No, it wasn't. Right, so there's another one here. What happens with this one? Ah, right, okay, so we don't need this one. Let me just check. No, that was what I've just shared. So the next session is session 7. And this is the session that's kind of in 2 halves. And it's the last PowerPoint. Because after that, the tables turn and you're not presenting anymore, but they are. So in session 7, the first half of the session, they have got time to make any changes to their idea based on any feedback that they got from anybody that they showed this idea to. All right. Sometimes they haven't done it. They haven't shown anybody. They've got nothing to show for it. So they've literally got 20 minutes at the start of this session to just discuss, reflect, and think about any changes they want to make. And then halfway through the session, you will introduce this PowerPoint and you will introduce the presentation to them. And this is a suggestion for a way of doing the presentation. You don't have to do it like this. This is just how I've been doing it. You can get them to present however you want, but this is just my suggestion. So for session 7, if you wanted to start with a divergent thinking challenge, you can. So there's the different uses for a paperclip, reminder of the skills. Right, and then presentation. So they should know at this point that in 3 weeks' time, they will be presenting their idea to a panel of industry experts that you will have recruited or found, who are going to come either to your school or to a place externally that you take them to, if it's to make it more formal. And they are going to present their ideas to these judges, who are going to give them feedback and ask questions, etc., and give them a score for how original, how applicable, and how affordable their idea is. Their presentation must be a maximum 5 minutes. I would say 4 minutes or less. They can use PowerPoint if you're happy with that, or if they've chosen to do it in a different way, they can do it in a different way. They need to work on a plan today of who is going to say what and do what and when as part of this presentation, and remind them it needs to be simple and clear. And the way that I've been doing it with the English students is the way that Elon Musk does his presentations. And this isn't to say that we necessarily think Elon Musk is marvelous or wonderful, because he does some good, some bad, but his style of presentation is very successful. And whenever he presents his ideas, he generally gets support for them. And so I just offer this to the young people and say, this is how he does it. If you want to follow the same model, you can. If not, you might take elements, some parts of this, and use it. Up to you. So the first thing he will do is name and show the problem. So he calls it name the enemy. And so this is painting an emotionally moving picture of how bad the litter situation is. Who or what is to blame, explaining who is it that drops the litter. What impact is all this litter having on people and actually on wildlife and the planet, and why? And the object of the exercise in the first part of this presentation is to make the people that are watching, the judges, make them feel sad, make them feel emotional, make them feel worried or concerned. So it's licensed to be dramatic, and some kids do this really well. And, you know, it moves you as well. And you're sat there thinking, oh my goodness, this is terrible. So that's the impact you want to have right at the start, just so you get your audience's attention and they suddenly realize how terrible this thing is. Then he moves into why now. So your next part of your presentation is about explaining why now in 2022, 23. Why is it really important that we need to solve this problem of litter? And obviously it's climate change and damage to biodiversity and the planet and all the rest of it. So that's the point at which they just need to put something in there about the time and how we don't have time and how important it is for us to solve this problem now. The next part, or the next part of his presentation, is all of the work that they've just done in the last 2 weeks. So this is where they put their idea. If they've already started doing a PowerPoint about their idea, then that's already there. And they add the naming of the problem and why now we need to do this solution at the beginning. So slides in front of this. And this is the main part. This is why I think it's a good idea to start the PowerPoint 2 weeks ago, you know, when they start developing the idea, because they've already got something on screen. And this is the bit where you say, he calls it painting a picture of the promised land. It's not painting or anything. It's about giving your audience a mental image of your idea, show it to them. And it's your only opportunity. This is where they explain their idea. All of the work they've done up until now is shown in this idea. And if they just do one tiny slide and just mention it, oh, our idea is this, and then they move on, that's not enough. They need to keep this part the main part of the presentation. So if they've had 3 or 4 slides before this bit needs to be 4 or 5 slides. Yep. So really get them to work on the actual idea. Then the last 2 bits of his presentation, one is explaining away the obstacles. They say, or he says, that he knows as soon as he starts to explain an idea, people will be sitting there thinking, that's not going to work. I can see a problem with that. Oh, I can see why that's not going to work at all. And if you remember, when they did the ideas selection and they did that piece of paper with the 3 columns, they did the 3 good things and then the problem and then the divergent thinking. They solved the problem. That is what comes in here. So they still need that piece of paper. You need to keep that resource with them. Is this a question? I have to leave, Sandra. Okay. So that they've already got the answer to this, but that's where they can put whatever it might be. I don't know, let's think of a litter problem. Might be let's just say that if we did my litter idea, it was making a video of somebody saving their waste pencil sharpening shavings. Okay, what might a problem with that be? How do we get everybody to watch this video? Or people might not watch the video, or people might not be able to afford the pencil case. You know, so they'll have come up with a solution for that. Might be the government makes the video compulsory, puts it out on TikTok. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? They come up with, that's where they explain away the problem and give the solutions to that bit. And then the last part of the presentation is winning over the audience with evidence. And that is where they use the feedback from the people they've shown their idea to. So where they've taken it home and their family have gone, oh, that's a great idea, I'd definitely buy that. Or I really like that idea, I can see how it's going to reduce litter, etc. So that's where they put their quotes from their potential customers, from their potential users of their idea, to explain why they would do it or use it. And sometimes they can put statistics in there. They could say 30%, no, that's not good enough. 90% of people that we asked said that they would definitely use this idea, or that kind of thing. And then also on this PowerPoint, there are some additional presentation top tips, and you can use these or you can use your own, but there are just some sort of slides here that give some idea of, or reminders when they're doing a presentation, that they're telling a story, that they need to know it inside and out. And they've got to believe in it. If they don't believe in their idea, it's going to come across as, yeah, we've got this idea. But if they're really believing it and they're passionate about it, that will come through. So that, and they do have to know their idea to be able to answer questions about it, because they will get questions. There was this was when we did it on Zoom, so there was just some suggestions here for about how to use facial expressions and the tone of voice and the rhythms of your voice, but lots of detail you may or may not want to use. About stories and helping people understand what they're saying when they're doing their presentation. Again, wanting to have an impact on their audience. They want to either make them laugh, make them cry, make them feel sad, or enthusiastic, and then get them to remind them it's important to smile. And then what you want to do not at the end of that session. So that session is starting to work on all of that PowerPoint content in session 7. Then in session 8, you want to say to them, right, at the end of this session, we are going to have a first rehearsal. So you might give them 30 minutes to work on their presentation, and then you let them rehearse one group at a time out at the front, and everybody else sits and watches, and everybody can offer constructive feedback. So they can all make suggestions. And I thought the way you spoke was really good. I thought your body language was really good. Or I got really distracted every time you kept fiddling with your hair or rubbing your nose or moving from one foot to the other. Sometimes what they do, well, you'll know, if they're doing a presentation in a group, they'll all queue, like they'll stand like they're waiting for a bus until it's their turn. And so you need to say, Vinetta's laughing, you need to say, everybody needs to ground themselves, put your feet down like they're tree roots, take a deep breath, try and relax and face the front, and try not to do anything distracting while the person who's talking is talking. And yeah, need to be smooth transitions. We don't need you all going, who's next? It's you next. It's me next. No, it's you next. So yeah, so their first rehearsal, and it won't be very good because it's their first rehearsal. So then the following week, which will be week 9, you want to give them the opportunity to just rehearse themselves, and then again to rehearse in front of everybody else. So it's a refining, rehearsing, refining. And by the time they've rehearsed again and practiced in front of you all, at the end of that session, they should be ready to do the final presentation in the final week, in week 10 or session 10. Now, sometimes if you've got an opportunity to give them an additional time to present, like in an assembly or in front of a class, another class, a different class, then that's good too. So then you should have 4 PowerPoints or 4 presentations ready. You will already have invited your industry panel to the next session, and you probably want 3, possibly 4, 3 or 4 industry panel members. So they will be, and you want to think strategically here. If you want for there to be a chance of any of these ideas being taken further to the next stage of development, if you can pick people to be on your panel, invite them in from your local council, municipality, your whoever it is that does the litter picking in your area, for this example, whose responsibility is it to remove litter. You might want to bring in an entrepreneur, somebody that's local that you know is an entrepreneur and has set up a local business or an enterprise that's making money. So somebody who knows about turning ideas into reality. You might want to invite somebody from a university, or somebody from a waste management company. You just have to think laterally, because I don't know what themes you will pick or what your young people will pick. And you know, this will be a piece of work that you will need to do, and it's an extra piece of work. And then so the final week arrives. Your panel are sat at a table. They've got a score sheet, which we will get sent to you, where they know to score each idea based on originality and affordability and applicability. And each group will present in turn, and then the panel will give them feedback. So group one presents, the panel give feedback to group one, and they write their scores, and they maybe write some comments down. Group two present, get their feedback, panel ask questions, write comments down. And you do that for all the groups. And then at the end, you just thank everybody because they've done an amazing job. They've come a long way, great ideas. Thank you so much, panel. Off the young people go. You chat to the panel and you just say, you know, if anybody's interested or got any suggestions for how we might help any of these ideas get to the next stage, then more than happy to work with you and help.
Mas tem aí o e-mail do Manuel.
Sorry, Ricardo.
São duas pessoas, faz duas vezes.
Ricardo!
I can't.
I can mute him. So that, and then that is the point at which the project officially finishes, depending on whether or not you are evaluating how you want to evaluate. And there are assessment suggestions in IO2 in the best practice guide for how you might assess. And you may have your own ways of assessing achievement, attainment, learning gains, etc. You might want to do a final follow-up session where you get them to do a proper reflection on what they've learnt, what they're now able to do that they couldn't do before. And you may or you may not have some suggestions from your industry panel for additional support that they might want to give. So, for example, we did one in a secondary school last week at their pitch event, the final event. It was on reducing food waste. And we had somebody on the panel who runs a refill shop. So, you know, a shop where you can go and get your washing up liquid refilled or your hair shampoo refilled. So somebody who worked in a refill shop, and he wanted to take one of the ideas, and one of the ideas was to create a campaign that was shared at festivals. So like pop festivals where young people go, and where lots of food is wasted. So they buy takeaways and then throw away the box and the contents that's left. And he's offered to work with this group to pilot the campaign at a festival that he's organising. So you never know. Sometimes ideas come, sometimes don't. Don't worry, Ricardo, that's fine. So yeah, and it depends on your time as well. And it's the part of the project or the part of the Applied Creativity Lab process at the moment for us at IVE, which is the weakest part, because there are lots of offers of additional help. I've had an entrepreneur come and talk to a group of primary children about their next steps to develop an app, because it's really easy to develop an app. and it's a really easy thing to do. And the children loved it. His explanation was brilliant, but then the teacher just didn't have the time, of course, to do extra work with this group. So you have to weigh up, the learning was enough. Now's not the time to actually go forward with this idea unless they can do it in their own time, which is still an option. So, okay, right, it's 11:10. We're going to stop and take a break. And then when we come back, it's your chance now to think, if I've got to start doing this in October, November, what are my questions? And you'll have many, I know. So we'll do a question and answer session. Is that all right? Okay, cool. Right, so let's come back at 11:16. Okay, so last half an hour, if that, we might not need all that. We might be able to finish early. So let's go with questions. There'll be lots of questions. Just ask anything, however small, it doesn't matter. And Michael and I will do our best to answer.
The first question is actually from me, actually.
Yeah.
I should know this, but I just wanted to double check. In both today's sessions and last week's session and in partner meetings, we've discussed that we have to be flexible in terms of how lengthy this process is. It can be over 10 weeks, it can be done online, it can be done face to face. For those teachers who are already really strapped for time, how condensed can the ACL be? If you want to sort of try and cover all the different aspects, like having some sort of expert influence in it and time for them to develop their ideas, how quickly can it be done?
Well, if you think about the amount of time it takes, it's 4 hours for sessions 1 and 2, and then 9 hours for the rest of it. So that's 13 hours in total. So you could probably do it in 3 days, 2.5 days, if you did it in a condensed form. So Stuart, we've done it in Mount St Mary's in your school in a different way. So we've probably done have we done 3 half days? Yeah. But we still got to do the final event, haven't we? It's been going on forever.
I'll send you that through.
Yeah. So yeah, and like literally we started working with your students in, was it January? Yeah. And we're now June, and they haven't done their final event, but they've had 3 half days, and they get back into it pretty quickly, and they're ready with their presentations now.
Oh yeah.
Just need to organise the final thing. So yeah. I'd say 13 hours. Might be able to do it in 12 hours. The thing with the games at the beginning is you can make that as long as you want or condense it, but you really do need to do as many of those divergent thinking games and the convergent thinking challenge exercise as well. Don't skimp on that time. Yeah. And I don't think you can shorten it much past 12 hours, to be honest.
It can obviously pick and choose which of the activities you do as well, because one of my thoughts was, in terms of the more like agile experiments, if you've got people with additional needs, yeah, it's obviously making sure that it's fit for purpose and you're not kind of excluding anybody from the group if you're asking them to sort of move in a certain way or do something they can't do.
Yep. So we know that there's going to be this online MOOC, well, online learning platform, which will have 20 hours of study time in theory, which we want everybody to test, because this is a pilot. Yeah. Yeah. And we'll want feedback on, and it is there's a lot more theory on the MOOC, as well as the training that we've just done this week and last week. Yes, Ricardo.
I am just curious to know if the children exchange projects with each other or can evaluate each other's solutions.
Yeah, at generally they don't get to see each other's ideas until the first
Okay.
rehearsal. Yeah, because otherwise sometimes what happens is they wander around the classroom trying to steal ideas from other people, and then yeah, it gets a bit difficult. So if nothing else, having the Apply Creativity Lab workbook or handbook and the PowerPoints, that's the bare minimum I think that you need to be able to do it. But then the online learning platform will give you that theoretical understanding, and it will also include a section that young people can access. So if your say your group, or you want to they choose a theme of deforestation, I don't know, different countries or different towns and cities in different countries have different big issues, and they want to actually do more in terms of climate activism, there'll be a section on this online learning platform for them to see what local groups they might be able to join, groups that are active in their country, or that they could connect up with online. And likewise, oh yeah, share the link to the PowerPoints. Now at the moment there isn't a link to the PowerPoints, so we've got to work out how we're going to share those.
I think our idea was that we would embed those on the platform, so when you register on the platform you'll have access to the different modules or the sample modules that are currently uploaded, plus some of the additional resources. The resources will be in English to begin with, but we'll be translating them into all 6 partner languages, or the 5 partner languages, before we actually officially launch the platform.
I'm thinking, because the PowerPoints are all on the Google Drive, that it would be quite easy for partners to share those with their teachers, so that you've got physically, well, not physically, but digitally got them on your machines if you need them in advance, or for planning or that kind of thing. And also practically, Michael, thinking about it, if you're in the classroom and you want PowerPoint too, you don't want to have to go into the MOOC. That's another thing we need to think about.
Well, I suppose it would be like, to use that word again, like a repository, so they'd be on there, but they'd also be downloadable as well.
Yeah, that's the way around it, isn't it? Yeah.
But yeah, for those teachers who already want to sort of familiarize themselves with all the resources, like Sarah said, if the partners involved in the project are happy to download those and circulate them with the teachers who are going to enroll, that's a good idea as well.
Yeah. In terms of finding or deciding the theme and sourcing your experts, for me, I always have a good 3 months lead-in time. So I would be wanting to know, if I was you, I'd be wanting to know probably early September, which group of 15 young people you might want to work with, or if you're going to work with 20 or more, how brave you are, up to you. I like 15, it's a good number, but I know it's not a normal class size. Normally we have classes of 30, but it's up to you. They need to agree on the theme that they'd like to find a solution to. And so you can give them some of those lists from the beginning, whether it was air pollution, food waste, general waste management, deforestation, flooding, the whole list of climate related issues that you might want to present to them, and then get them to choose. And as soon as they've chosen, that then is your cue to then go and contact your local authority, council, municipality, don't know what you call them, but whoever collects your rubbish, manages your streets, those people where you pay your taxes to, contact them and ask them for somebody to come and do a presentation on that theme and what they are doing about it. They generally will be happy to do it because they all need to be seen to be consulting with schools and children and society, and it ticks boxes for them. We call it corporate social responsibility. But generally these experts are more than happy to come for free because we're not paying them. There's no money involved. And then when you know your theme, you are also then able to think about which organizations might have other experts who can come in on that first day after the morning break to present from slightly different perspectives. And that in order for them to come in, you will need to know your date. So you need to be ready with your start date. Say it's November the 1st. So you're contacting them early September and saying, please, could you come for 10 minutes, just for 10 minutes on the 1st of November to present at 9:30. So you give them a really clear ask. And they are more likely, they're either able to say yes or no, or I have a colleague who could do it for you. And then the usual information you need to give them, where your school is, how to get there, etc. And then get them to come 10 minutes before the start of the session or when you want them. And then the same with your industry panel, not so much of a rush for them because you've still got the 10 weeks of the project or the length of the project, if however long that is, if you shorten it. But I think we're thinking that we're going to do this somewhere between November and January. So you will have a break in the middle of it for Christmas break. So you would be wanting to try and get your industry panel invited in November, December time. So when you know your end date. And sometimes it helps to ask either other members of staff or senior teams in school if they have any connections or know anybody. If anybody knows anybody, like a friend who works in that kind of area or something, or I just Google, and if I know the theme, I just Google and I put the theme and I put the town or the village or the city, and then up will pop all sorts. And it's like being a detective. It's my favorite part of the process, actually, finding people and then contacting them, because they often haven't got phone numbers there or emails, and you have to work to find them. But usually once you've got somebody and they've come and they've presented and they see what you're doing, they are definitely highly likely to come back again. We get lots of repeat experts. And then we get funding as well, actually, for us to deliver them. But this is a different ball game. We're asking you to deliver yourselves to see how it works. And that is another thing to say, isn't it, Michael, that because this is a pilot, you're testing this for us. And so we want to be able to learn from what I haven't told you and you didn't know because it wasn't covered in the training, or what didn't work, or what worked really well, or what you did differently that was really good. So all of these things we want to find out in order to make final changes to the online learning platform and the best practice guide before we finish it all.
Because this is the first time that the ACL methodology that Sarah's presented this week and last, it's the first time that it's been scaled up across different European contexts, but also with older students. So whereas most of the work that's been done so far has been tended to be with younger students, our target audience are 12 to 17-year-olds, especially those students who could be deemed or classed as disadvantaged in some way. So it could be that their school is under well, all schools are underfunded, but a particularly special situation where there's very few opportunities for guest speakers or for school trips or for any additional learning or additional events. Any schools in your area or any particular class groups that you're aware of who are facing additional challenges, it'd be great to get their feedback on this methodology. So both the staff and students, both you and your colleagues, but also from the students, we'll be asking them before and after the that lab how what they knew about climate change or the particular issue you're focusing on, and then how much the labs have helped them sort of develop their ideas. There's also an element of sort of careers guidance as well, because as Sarah stressed, we're trying to put them in touch with industry experts that they wouldn't normally have any contact with. So it could be that, especially for the older end of the spectrum students, that if they are thinking about what they're going to do after they leave high school, it could be that their interest is sparked by a particular job or sector within their local area, so a particular part of the local council, or it might make them think about what they want to do, maybe a training course or university if that's where they're headed. So there's also that careers element as well, where even for the younger students to decide whether they're going to follow something a more technical path, to go to a sort of technical high school in their area when they're late, sort of in the 14 or 15-year-old, or whether they want to do something more academic. One thing I was going to ask Sarah is, in terms of the expert speaker that comes in at the beginning, could they also be part of the industry panel at the end?
Yes.
Yeah.
Generally they are, because they're one of the most senior people because they've got the overview. They're always good to have on the final panel. And sometimes some of the other experts are happy to come as well, if not to be on the panel, but just to watch, because they come in at a point where you're doing some of the activities, and they might see some of the activities while they're waiting to present. They're intrigued, and then they want to come back and see what ideas they came up with. Claudia?
Yeah, it was a bit on this line, my question. How are you going to evaluate the success or not of this pilot? Is with those tests we talked about in the first session, measuring their evolution, the kids' evolution, or something?
Yeah, that's interesting. Michael, I don't know, what do we think? I don't know, Vinetta, if you've got anything to say on the assessment front from the best practice guide.
Yeah, I think we can use those because we discussed like before and after all the activities, but they can be changed and adapted to the group or class, and I think those might be useful as well to assess the progress. Yeah,
I mean, the sheets that I use, or the process I use, is done by our local university, and it costs money. So that can't be a way that everybody does. It has to be a way that you would assess young people's achievement in your own environment, I think. And even if it was just four questions, 5 questions, how confident do you feel presenting? How much do you know about deforestation? How much do you know about creative problem solving? How, on a scale of 1 to 10, you ask them at the beginning, and then you ask them the same questions at the end. But doing the analysis, that's the challenge. There must be some software, but I don't do that.
Our partner in Belgium, the Square Dot team, they are responsible for the 4th output of this project, which is the impact assessment and policy recommendations report. So in effect, all the sessions we run, whether it's the stakeholder meetings that we've already held in most countries, or piloting sessions, or the actual real life ACLs that are taking place towards the end of the year, they'll be responsible for producing a adapted questionnaire, which covers what Sarah and Vinetta have talked about. So to assess basically both the staff and students, how much they've learned. Obviously, if you have a different method you want to use, say in the school in Latvia where Vinetta works, if something else works better, that can be done as well, and we can feed that into the report, because obviously, as Sarah said, what we're doing here is piloting this methodology. We're not saying it's going to work perfectly well in every country, in every context. So feedback, both positive and negative, is welcome. It's what we need, because the idea is that we present the final report to the European Commission sort of this time next year, firstly to release the last sort of tranche of payments to the project partners, but also in the hope that it gets taken up at a higher level. So at a systemic level, people know about the ACL methodology, and they can use it within their daily practice as teachers. One question I was going to ask, or just something to suggest, in terms of the expert panel, Sarah, when it comes to, say you've got 3 industry experts, are our teachers or scale partners, are we asked to kind of encourage or persuade the expert panel to act as like the positive person, the negative person, and
No,
the
the
person
positive.
neutral.
Yeah, the positive. Definitely, you ask them to give constructive, positive feedback, and you stress that for some young people, they will be really nervous and they will be scared to speak, and for some of them to just stand up in front of 3 strangers will be hard enough, you know. And for them, you just say, okay, you just hold something. By the time they've done 2 rehearsals or even 3 rehearsals, they are often quite happy to say 1 line. I'm thinking, Stuart, where are you on my screen? Who's that little lad? There's that little lad in your group, that group that we work with, you know, the one that he's always out sitting somewhere to one side. And he's a classic case. He didn't want to engage. He wasn't playing the game or being part of the group. And then when it came to presenting, he really didn't want to do that either. So I gave him a special job. And he was a judge, actually. He sat with me and acted as a judge because he didn't have to stand up and present. So, you know, and then he did, actually, with his group. I'm pretty sure he did stand up and say something. So yeah, I say it goes as it goes. You know, you're the teacher, you're the one who knows that the young people you're dealing with. You make it happen and work the way it works best for your young people. It's not a precise science at all. You have to be flexible with it. Possibility thinking is needed.
The reason I mention that, Sarah, is because, you know, with like interview panels, there tends to be a sort of process they follow where one person kind of does a lot of smiling, does a lot of, you know, seems interested what the answer is, and then other people are asked to sort of pick it apart. So for this,
it's not.
Even though it's like even though they've got the Dragon's Den apprentice type reference that we had, I think it was in last week's session. Really, we're asking all however many panelists we have to be positive and not to pick holes in the idea.
That's use the same approach to do the yes and. You know, why they like the idea, what they think is particularly unique about it. Did they like anything about the presentation? You know, just bigger, because sometimes for some young people it might be the first time they've ever presented formally, so we don't want to put them off before they've even started. So I'd quite like just to go round and hear from each of you in terms of how you're feeling about this and what you're thinking your next steps will be in September. So can I go to Stuart first, just because you're first on my screen?
Yep. So I've been involved with some training with Chris and Drew, and also I've seen you deliver the sessions yourself, Sarah, to the group, and Maddie. I was just discussing kind of how we've seen each of the sessions work and how it gets to people's ready where they are ready, where I'm sure they're just telling them write presentations on this date, they'd be completely fine with it. I think what we were looking at is more the kind of selection process. So the current group we've got about 37 in total. So we've seen the advantages of that. We've also seen the kind of pitfalls with it, but we've also seen kind of where it works really well. And I think in our kind of reflection with the students, that they have been really empowered with their ideas, and the whole kind of, when you said like kind of yes and sort of what can you do now? How would you enhance this?
So I think we really need to maybe half that group, and then going forward, just like you said, source our expert, find our experts, which I'm sure we'll do literally as soon as our session's finished. So yeah, sort the size of our group, source an expert.
Yeah, and make sure that the group want to do the theme. That's really.
So sorry, I'll just rephrase that. Sorry, we'll get some ideas and find a few, just sort of get the feelers out there. But of course, like you say, it's over to the students about what they want to do. It's not about what we're choosing recycling when actually they might. So we are giving them ownership of that. So, so it's sort of just seeing what's in our local community and who we can actually get
Yeah, because in relation to seeing this as it's a whole load of employability skills that we're developing as well. The theory being that if once they're in a job and they're working, they've obviously chosen to apply for that work and to do that work because they're interested in it.
Yeah.
And that gives them a much more authentic experience than going to a lesson in school that they don't resonate with, they don't like, they're not very good at, and they can't succeed. So we want to give them a chance to have a positive experience. Okay, thank you. Anna Maria, your next round on my screen.
So, well, for me in general, I liked a lot this kind of workshops because for me it's new, this kind of methodology to working. And as I work with kids, I discover very interesting approaches to deal with creativity. Because I work in forest, so forest, it's like a very big screen of creativity, and it's like a big school without walls. So for me, it was very interesting, and I take with me a lot of tools. And regarding a scale project, well, I with my team, we are trying in this beginning to talk about what kind of activities are going to do. So I think for me, I'm kind of prepared to starting doing interesting things with kids. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. That's interesting that you're already working in a forest school. Marvelous. Pedro?
So for the finish, for the sum up, well, we have been working creativity for the past few years, or at least have trying to at least to be on the contrary of what we are taught like every day, or at least in the schools, because like you said, the school sometimes kills creativity, and in our job we had to go the other way around. And this was very amazing because we have this new colleague that just entered the team, Sophia, and she doesn't know how to create, how to develop new things, because the former jobs that she had, they only asked for her to do specific things. So these kinds of methodologies and approaches are essential for the new students, for the new jobs, for everything that comes along in the next few years. And I think for our students will be such a major value that they will gain. They will not for sure know now, but we know that that will be a very excellent tool for them, and we are eager to implement it here. We just need to finish up, I think, the details, but I think Katarina then will tell us about the amount of hours that we will need to work, the amount of students, because we have 37 schools that we work here in Lousada with about 7,000 students. And we just need to know how many students we need to work with and how many hours to know what's best for you, for the project.
37,000 sounds good.
yeah, I know. That would be nice. But I know, just for you to know optimal numbers from the sample and stuff like that, for us to, I know, to tune up the things and to be able to give you good outputs to the project.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Egbert?
Well, I actually work in higher education, so I'm going to have to think about what I need to. I don't think I need to change a whole lot because there's a lot of good stuff in here, but some of these things maybe lift a higher level. What I really want to do is run a sort of pilot with the one group that I'll be coaching in the minor circular economy that I'm teaching in, which is a group of 5-6 students. So that's the perfect size. And then I just have one group, and then see what I can take away from that and see if I can implement that in a module that I'm teaching later in the year.
Okay, so what age will the people be that you want to trial this with?
So those would be about 20 years old.
Okay, Michael, that will be an interesting twist.
I think it's okay because I know when we spoke to Elizabeth and her colleagues in Leuven, they were talking about who their contacts were, and I think as long as we also find a school or Dutch speaking school age students to also trial it with in the area, it should be fine as well. And it's just like an addition and something added added value to the project that we're also trialing at a higher level as well. There's no problem there at all.
Yeah, great, because we're actually starting to develop this approach to work with businesses in the UK with adults. So yeah,
I teach international business, so let me know.
Right. I'm just making a quick note. Right, Chara, you're next on my screen.
So I am actually here on behalf of our teachers. So we will be reporting to them like what we have learned during this workshop and this methodology, so that they will be able to apply it to their classrooms and tailor it and develop their workshop and the activities with their own classrooms. But yes, we will be reporting it to them.
Great. So you're training the trainer, or we've been training the trainer. Excellent.
Yes.
That's good to know. Yeah. Ernesto?
Hello, everybody. You can hear me, yes?
Yes.
So Pedro is my colleague. I am an environmental educator too. So almost Pedro says is everything that we do in Lausanne. So this workshop, it was very inspiring because to learn, because I learned more methodologies and techniques to improve our work here in Lausanne. So thank you.
Great, good. That sounds good. Good to hear. Ricardo?
Let me put the mic on. Yes.
Yeah.
I do very like your speech. I am part of the team with Anna, Claudia, Pedro, Ernesto, and many others. I don't work at the moment directly with creativity, but I manage and plan a protected landscape. However, the place where Ana Pereira works, the Villar Forest, as Ana says, regularly receives children. So in this sense, being the forests of Villar a very important environmental equipment for the protected landscape, I think that this methodology will certainly be adapted and replicated under the educational program that Anna is running in this forest. So for me, it was a pleasure to hear you and to know you, and I hope to see you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Well, hopefully we'll all get together again in January next year when everybody's finished to hear about how it went. Michael, that would be good. And then Claudia.
Hello. So I'm very excited to apply this. I think it's going to be awesome to put kids in giving them real life tools because they're going, the purpose is that to develop skills that will help them in the future, being creating solutions for small and bigger problems, being able to express themselves, to present in front of stakeholders. And that's something a lot of them struggle with, and it's super important life skill to have. So I'm eager to determine with who we're going to choose to apply these pilots, to start choosing between the games and the strategy to our group. So I think that's going to be the next steps. I'm also interested on the what you said, that you're creating this for adults, because I have another project. We're actually trying to create a school for politicians in environmental subjects, because most stakeholders don't know what they're dealing with when they decide super big important issues. So we're doing that with the Go Green project. So some of these tools maybe we can apply there too. So it's interesting to see how this methodology can be applied with different groups.
Yes, that's interesting. We're currently working with a gaming company in the UK to develop their creative thinking skills. And we're starting to include emotional intelligence in there as well. Yeah, it's evolving. It's great. It's nice, actually. Zana seems to have disappeared, so we can't hear from her. Fair enough. So Michael, that's it from me at the moment. Obviously, for anybody that's not a partner organisation, your key contact is your partner organisation, and then they can communicate with me and Michael directly for anything that's needed. Anything else to add, Vineta or Michael?
I was just going to say thank you, Sarah, for all the training you've offered this morning and last week as well. The videos will be posted on our YouTube channel, so if partner organisations can circulate links to that. So for any of your colleagues who want to get involved in this, want to find out more, it's definitely worth them watching these videos first. And then once the platform is ready to be accessed fully, we'll obviously grant you access to that. Our partners in Spain are the technical leads for that, and then IVE is working on the content, leading the content at the moment. So we'll be in touch, in the coming weeks when that's ready for you to access. But like Sarah says, your main point of contact will be whoever invited you to today's session. So if you have any questions or anything needs to be clarified or confirmed, please contact your relative partner in each of the partner countries, and they'll be able to forward the message to either me or Sarah. But yeah, thanks everyone for your attendance both last week and today.
Yeah, and do feel free to ask questions at any time from now until January, via your partner. If you've got a question, you can't remember something, or you're not sure, or you want to check, or say you're going to try it this way and what do we think, and then feel free. Yeah.
There's also going to be a space on the platform that Sarah and I both alluded to this morning. There's also going to be a sort of networking space. So if you are interested if you're wanting to ask questions, wanting to bounce ideas off each other in each of the partner countries, or something's not clear and you can't access us directly, there will be like a forum on the platform we're creating. So the platform is accessible at this stage, so we can circulate the link to register on the platform, and you can have a quick look around the sample modules that have been uploaded. But once the platform is fully finalized, translated into your language, we'll obviously grant you full access, and you can start to train on the MOOC that's being built with a view, as Sarah said, the same time that you're scouting for experts in the autumn, you're also going to be completing this training course, and then towards the end of this year, start of next year, actually take part in the ACL, either delivering it yourself or assisting colleagues to deliver it. And as we stressed, I think Claudia mentioned this as well, we know that there will be issues with it. We know it's not going to be straightforward in each of the partner countries. There will be things that we haven't considered, things that have worked on a local level with younger children in the UK that don't apply to high school students in Latvia or in Holland or in Belgium. So there's no right or wrong way of doing it. You've been given the basis and the background by Sarah's presentation and through the MOOC that's been developed. And when we have a meeting, like Sarah suggested, maybe have a sort of follow-up session the start of next year for all the teachers who are involved in the training, and we can discuss what worked well, what didn't work well.
Yeah, and I'd really love to know how it goes.
Yeah,
personally.
We'll obviously ask all participants, both staff and students, to fill in surveys, but also to get some more qualitative feedback. Yeah, we'll definitely invite anybody who has taken part in the ACL to a final session next year. There'll also be final conferences in each country. So wherever you're based, whichever partners invited you today, they will be hosting a final conference. Fingers crossed that's face-to-face, COVID permitting. And that's when you'll be able to meet other schools that have been involved.
Take some students.
Take the students along.
Yeah.
The industry panel will be invited to attend. So it's a way of being able to analyze or evaluate your involvement in the project, but also for networking as well. So you'll meet other schools in your region or other teachers who are interested in these topics, and hopefully it will lead on to further collaboration as well.
So at the end of the day, we know we've succeeded when the young people have got new creative problem solving skills that they apply to help save the planet.
Quite grand.
If that's not happening, we failed. Yeah. Yeah. It's that creative thinking, new solutions to real world problems. And Stuart and Maddie, I'll be able to come in and support you at some point. Not regularly, but like at some point we'll talk about that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody. Time's up. We finished on time. That's good. And good luck with it all and see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.